Do a review on Likkutei Sichos and Chelek Chof. This is the third Sicha for the portion of Vayetzei. The Rebbe explains a piece of Zohar about how much the blessings that the cattle that Yaakov was taking care of Lavan, whether it was 100 or it was 1,000, uh, and the Rebbe uh, asks on this on the details why the blessing, according to everybody, blessings are from Hashem are huge, but sometimes it comes down in a bigger amount, and sometimes a blessing comes down in a less amount. What's the ideas between these two opinions? Let's look inside. We'll go step by step. Aleph. Bescheiches zu der Brache, was hat sich aufgetan in Mikne Lovon in Schos von Yaakov, in connection to the blessings, the blessing that was accomplished in the cattle of Lavan in the Schos of Yaakov, welcher is given sein Roye Zoin. He was the shepherd of the sheep of Lavan. So in the merit of Yaakov, who was the shepherd, there was an increase. Bringt sich in Zohar zwei days. So in the Zohar, he brings down two opinions mit wiffel the Mikna Lavan is vergrößert geworden. How much did they increase? How much did the cattle of Lavan increase? The erste day is, the first opinion is, as Lavan Ashkach beginne the Yaakov, that Lavan found, because of Yaakov, Meya Ono, Kol Yarcho, that every month there was 100 sheep, Meya Amorim. Seems like the exact taich on the this could mean goats, but it could also mean like cattle. So there was 100 cattle every month, and then there was Meya Amorin. Amorin is sheep, 100 sheep. And then there was Meya Izim. Izim is specifically goats that milk, the Yatir al Aone, that was more than the general cattle, or maybe the Aone is the male goats and the Izim, whatever the case is. But the Zohar says that the blessing has to do with 100 sheep, 100 goats, 100 aonim. Rab Abba Omar, Rab Abba says, Elef aonin, 1,000 aonin, ve'elef amorin, ve'elef izim, and 1,000 goats. So maybe the aonim is the male goats and the izim is the female goats. I have to get the exact translation of aonim. But anyways, according to the first opinion, is that it was all 100. And according to Rabbi Abba, it was 1,000. That he brought them Yaakov Yatir B'chol Yarcha. That's the extra that he brought on every month when the we're saying that the Eberster blessed Yaakov. Yaakov brought in additional than before, additional 1,000, or according to the first opinion, additional 100. Und bringt der Eile the Varov, and Rabbi Abba brings proof to his words that it was 1,000. Davon, was Yaakov hat gesagt, Vayivorech Hashem oischol ragli. Hashem blessed you because of me. The fact that it says Hashem blessed you for me, ubirchoso dile'ela, a blessing of the one above, lav ihu pachos me'elef is no less than 1,000. So therefore, it's 1,000. That's why Rabbi Abba said. So the Rebbe says it's not like the first opinion that says that 100 he disagrees with the assertion that the Eibishter's blessing is 1,000. The only thing is, he says the Eibishter's blessing may be 1,000, but it comes down over here. It comes down to 100. So the Rebbe wants to know. Uh, so why does he choose to disagree on the first opinion? Why not say that it was 1,000 the way this source? Because the Rebbe says that the idea that 1,000 is the bracha of Hashem, that's accepted across the board. The only question is how it came down. Let's look inside. As his move on, it's understood as Euch leuchten ersten man da Omar, that also, according to the first opinion, is just given birchas Hashem. It was Hashem's blessing. Vayevorach Hashem oischol ragli, it was Hashem's blessing. This is mefurish bekosuv, as the pasuk says it clearly. Welchen stellt sich, in which he places himself. The as the medrash that says is on the pasuk of der Zohar, on this pasuk in our parsha. Bis as euch loven hat der Reif meide given, that to the extent that also Lavan agreed to that it's true that Hashem's blessing him. Vayivorcheni Hashem biglolach. So that means that Lavan also recognized that the bracha came because of Hashem. So the Rebbe says, in order not to make the disagreement of the rabbis different, increase more difference, and say that one believes that the bracha of Hashem is 1,000, and the other one believes that the bracha of Hashem is 100. So in order not to go and increase the disagreement, Yesh Leima, we can say, as dos was halt as the bracha is given, blois b'mispar meya, the fact that he says that the blessing was only 100, is not disagreeing in principle that the Eibishter's bracha is 1,000. Is nit weil halt nit von klal. It's not because he does not go by the rule as birchoso de le'elo lav iu pachos me'elav, that the blessing from the one of above is no less than 1,000. Because we don't want to increase and say there is disagreeing about that. Nor weil die bracha von der Eibishter can nimshach werden auf zwei Ofanim. The blessing of Hashem can descend, come down in practically into this world in two ways. Aleph, number one, the hamshach is often it extends in a way as lemato, that even as it comes down below is in ir niker begolu, you can tell openly as is birchoso de la'ela, that it's a blessing from above. You can see it's such an increase that you see right now that it's a blessing from above. Then it brings a tremendous increase, so much, 1,000, even on the literal level way it comes down in the increase of the sheep. Everybody sees the bracha of Hashem over here because this is totally unusual, 1,000 times extra. But sometimes the hamshachas v'yeridas habracha from the Eibishter lemato, that when it extends and it descends of the blessing from Hashem to below, wird anders in them. So then there is a change. Was litato is nit kentik golui aziz berchosu de leila. Below we can't tell openly that it's a blessing from above. B'chol ha'toikev. And the way it comes down is yoyred von elef to mispar meya. It descends from 1,000 to 100. So what the Rebbe is saying here, it's not arguing what the Eibishter's bracha is, but the question is what came down bepoil into this world. First opinion said that it was this open bracha of Hashem in the world, that it was 1,000 times as much. The second opinion says no, that it came down only 100. So the Rebbe says, why, if if we're going to say that he also agrees that it was 1,000, why wouldn't he want to diminish? What forces him to say that when it came down, it became 100? Why is the reason for that? It's aber nicht moving. Wie bald as euch Leute nerst man the Omer is just given Birchus Hashem, even according to the first opinion, was Hashem's blessing, is my hechlich zu sagen, as he's the Stane geworden. So what forces us to say that it changed, und geworden bei Mispermeya, that it became 100? So why did he have, if we're going to accept it that he agrees that it's 1,000, why does he have to say when it came down only in 100? Euch darf man verstehen, we also need to understand der Fun, was Rabbi Abba bringt, from Posik, he brings the proof from the Posik that by Baruch Hashem, Oischol Leragli, that's Yaakov saying to Lavan that Hashem has blessed you because of me. Und is sich nicht mistapik mit dem Posik, and he's not satisfied with the Posik, Nichashti vayivarcheni Hashem biglolecha, that Lavan said, I have done my magician and I saw that Hashem blessed me for you. That bracha by Varcheni Hashem biglolecha is already brought down in the first opinion, brings that posik, which comes before the posik by Varech Hashem Oischol Leragli, that Yaakov is saying to Lavan, but the part that Lavan said to Yaakov Nechashti by Varcheni Hashem biglolecha is first in the posik, and it's also brought down by the first opinion. So the question is, was wird schon gebracht für ihm der Elf und ist kein is mashma as davke von dem zweiten Posik is a choche. Specifically, it's this second Posik that Rabbi Abba brings down by Baruch Hashem Oischol Liragli. That is the Posik is a choche as given birchoso de le'ela. That means that it was a bracha from above, because he's saying by Baruch Hashem Oischol Liragli. Is it moving? V'azoi is from Posik by Baruch Hashem Oischa, which Leragli, which Yaakov is saying to Lavan, Merechocha from by Recheni Hashem, from the Posik that Lavan said that by Recheni Hashem. Why is the Rabbi Abba bring down the second Posik? To tell us that it was a birchoso de le'ela from this changing from the previous posik, and specifically brings down the nichashti by Varcheni Hashem biglolecha, does not bring down, and he brings the second posik by Baruch Hashem Eschol Leragli. Something is here that it's different when Lavan said it, and it's different the way Yaakov said. That's number one. Base. Number two, was is der tam hashinui? There's another difference in the two languages. So the first question, the Rebbe said, why does he bring down the second posik, which Yaakov said, and not the posik that Lavan said, Nichashti v'varcheni Hashem b'glolecha? What's the difference? Why does he bring that? And number two, there's another change. What's the tam hashinui? There's another change in the second man the Omar. The first one attributes it to Lavan. Lavan got the blessing. And the second one attributes it to Yaakov, that Yaakov brought the blessing. Base. Was is the tam hashinui? Was beim ersten man the Omar, what's the reason for the change in the Zohar? By the first opinion state, so because of Yaakov, he found 100, but it doesn't say that Yaakov brought it, but it came about because of the schus of Yaakov. It came 100. It was a blessing of 100. So that's what happened. But is madgish, this language emphasizes we love and hot bakumen abracha, that Lavan received the blessing. Beginei the Yaakov, because of Yaakov. Yes, it's because of Yaakov, but who gets the bracha? The bracha comes to Lavan. Rabbi Abba zog, but then when we come to Rabbi Abba, he says, Elef chulu habe maisile Yaakov. So he attributes the blessing to Yaakov, and Yaakov brings it to Lavan. Yaakov brings it to him, but Yaakov had gebrach bracha. So he emphasized Yaakov brought the blessing. In the first Mandomer, it says that the blessing came about because of Yaakov. But in the second, the emphasis is that Yaakov brought about the blessing, Maisel Yaakov. And if Rashi, so why is that change? Why does we change it from the Lashon that there was blessing there and Yaakov bringing, and just the opposite? This pasuk, if Yaakov wants to bring that he is the one that is bringing the bracha, not just he should have brought down the bracha, the pasuk by V'rcheini Hashem b'glolecha. That what Lavan said, because he says very clearly b'glolecha. Why does Rashi say by Varech the pasuk that he benched it because of Yosef, which doesn't emphasize Yosef's connection? Nochman. If Rab Abba is intending to emphasize that Yaakov is the one that brought the blessing, he should have brought the posik that is brought in the first opinion. Because of you. That seemingly emphasizes that it comes from Yaakov mer der post loshon by Vorach Hashem b'yischol leragli. Leragli means when I came to you, but biglolecha means for because of you. So that means that Yaakov is the recipient of the bracha. By Vorach Hashem b'yischol leragli, then he's blessing love on his blessing because of him, but the blessing goes to Lavan. But Rav Abba is trying to say, it seems like that Yaakov is Maisili. Yaakov brings you the blessing. And Yaakov got the blessing because the Eibishter gave it, but the Eibishter gave it to Yaakov. So he should have seemingly better brought the pasuk by V'rcheini Hashem b'glolecha, which emphasizes this. Eis Gimel. So in Eis Gimel, the Rebbe will Eis Beis, sorry. Eis Beis, the Rebbe will explain that the brachas that you give, Bechlal, is bringing down from the source to the person who is Mizbarech, which means you're bringing something down which they have in their source, and bracha you're mamshich. And therefore, Yaakov source of bracha is taki 1,000. And Lavan's is 100. And that explains the difference between the two numbers, whether it is to Lavan that is just coming because of Yaakov, but it's Lavan's source, which is 100, or it's a bracha which is shayches to Yaakov because of his source, base. The Yeshleimar Nekudas Habir Bazer, we can say the point explanation. Says Yedua, it's known as the inyan for a bracha bechlal is, what is a bracha in general is? As mis mavrich, the version that you graft, you mamshich, and that you draw down a hashpoe von zayin dem misborich shoyre shumoker. Something, a flow from the one who's being blessed from his source and root, from his root and source. You're just bringing down something which is in a spiritual level, bringing it down into practical. Das heißt, as the bracha hat melechatchila ashayches zu ihm, that means that this blessing to begin with has a connection to him. It's at Shorshe Mikoire because of his root and source. Umen darf es nur mamshich sein lemato. And all what you need to do is to bring it down below. So there is the person has this hashpah above, and the bracha brings it down is mavrich and mamshich that hashpah lemato. Ubel'shein hakosim, as the pasuk says, ish asher ki berchose berechosom. Every person like his blessing, which means the blessing that they have in their source, that's what he blessed them. Und das ist der Teuchen Achiluk zwischen die zwei Perushim. This is the difference, the content between these two commentaries. Es wenn sich bezad wemens schödische Mocker ist die Brache nimshach geworden. It depends because of whose root and source was the bracha extended here below. Leut nersten man da Omar, according to the first opinion, it was given a bracha zu welcher Loven is ro'ui mitzad shorshe mekore de Loven. That is a blessing to which Loven is fit because of his root and his source of Loven. It's Loven's source that is coming out in the bracha. Nor, but who initiated that bracha from Lavan's source that came through Yaakov? How was it extended below Dur Chasibat's Dodi through a side cause Biglolech B'Schush Shel Yaakov in the merit of Yaakov? And the far is the bracha given by Misper Meir. That's why it was the number. It was 100. Weil die Schleimus von Lavan ist verbunden bloß mit dem Misper Meir, because Lavan's wholesomeness is only connected with the number 100. Kid Lakamasif Yud, that Lavan is connected to 100. Mashenk and Rabbi Abba halt as opposed to Rabbi Abba, he's of the view as the bracha had gebracht Yaakov ba sein kommen. The blessing was brought by Yaakov when he came. Leragli bias ragli. Leragli means when my feet, when I came, and hat ihr gebracht zu Lavan. He brought it to Lavan. Aber he brought it to Lavan, but whose bracha is it? Aber sie is Yaakov. Sie is Yaakov. It's Yaakov's bracha. Ulefi madregos, based on his madrega. Sie ist nimshach geworden le Yaakov von sein schödischer Mocker to Yaakov, it was extended, it was drawn down from his root and source. Und hat die Brache gebracht zu Lavan, and he brought that blessing to Lavan. Und der Vater ist die Brache gewesen Mispar Elef. That's why this blessing was 1,000. Weil the Shleimus von Yaakov is verbunden mit Elef, because the Shleimus of Yaakov is associated, tied with 1,000, that the Rebbe will say Elef is Pelek in Lakamon Shom in Sivyud. Based on this, that whose bracha is it? Is it the bracha of the root of Lavan, and is it the bracha of the root of Yaakov? We understand the change of the languages from the zwei days. The first one says and emphasizes as Lavan ashkach, Lavan find. Lavan had gefunden sein bracha. He found his bracha. That was his bracha because it was his source. Nor der gefunden is beginning the Yaakov. But the reason he found it was because of Yaakov. When the far bringt dem Posik was Lavan had gesagt. That's why he brings the verse that was said by Lavan. Nichashti. I figured out erotes megalig ve'me'atzmai, that he revealed by himself as Vayivorcheni Hashem. Hashem blessed me. Nor this sibe is given biglolech. It was because of you. But I figured out that it was my bracha. It was 100, his source. Rabbi Abba is masgish as Havi Maisel Yaakov. He emphasized that Yaakov would bring. The bracha is given birchos shel Yaakov. This was Yaakov's bracha. Und hat sie gebracht zu Lavan. He is the one that brought it to Lavan. Und der Far bringt dem Posik, that's why he brings the verse, was Yaakov had gesagt. That was said by Yaakov, by Vorech Hashem Oischol Leragli Bevies Ragli. Hashem blessed you by my feet when it came in. That is my bracha. My bracha that I get, but it came to you because my coming here brought you my bracha. That was the bracha from Yaakov, and that's why it's 1,000, because Yaakov's bracha's root is 1,000. The Rebbe explains now in Nois Gimel that the Chlal, why is the bracha comes through a tzaddik? Because the whole world is serving for Bishvil Yisrael, and when a person helps a yid in his avodah, so that is the purpose of creation. And then the Rebbe will explain what does it mean exactly that the world was created, which depending on that, we will see to what degree does it transfer to the other person who helps the tzaddik. We'll look inside. Gimel. Klarer zu verstehen dem Inyan, to understand this idea more clearly, darf man magdim sein, we need to introduce them, beer in them, to explain in the idea of was rechushe shel Lavan is nisbarich bis chushe shel Yaakov, that Lavan's fortune assets were blessed in the merit of Yaakov. Was azoy dos by tzaddikim bechlal. This is not only by Lavan and Yaakov, but generally tzaddikim, that kol mokim shat tzaddikim holchim brocha mishtaleches, as it says in Bereshis Rabbah, that wherever tzaddikim go, the brocha is sent over there. Why is that? Because they end up serving the purpose of creation. The Welt is baschaffen geworden. The world was created bishvil ha-Torah bishvil Yisrael, for the Torah and for the Yidden. That das is the matore von der Bria, since that's the goal, the purpose of creation is for Torah and for Yidden. Is movement is understood as b'shas in yoneh ha'ilums, that when worldly matters seinen mishamish, they serve u'misayeh ha'yidin, and they help a Yid. As er soll kennen ton was darf tun, that he should be able to do that what he needs to do. Ani nivreis l'shamishes koini, that I am served, created to serve Hashem. So basically, the creation is for a person, and a person is created. The Yid is created to serve the Eibishter. So when you help the Yid doing his purpose of serving Hashem, kumen zei zu zeir tachlis, then they reach their goal, and that brings them to their wholesomeness, because that was the goal, is to help a Yid, and that is bishvil, because the world is created for the Yid. And das is their tam, and that's the reason. Because kol mokim shatzadikim hilchim bracha mishtaleches, wherever the tzadikim go, there is bracha there. Weil b'shas ha-mokim vert an ort, bu tzadikim kumen, because when a place becomes such a space, that tzaddikim come there and they serve Hashem in this space, they occupy themselves in the service of Hashem. Is there mokom v'inyon of misayeya to Yisrael v'Torah? That means that place and the other matters that are in the place, they help the Yid and Torah, so they are reaching their goal. And that's why, because they're helping the Yid to who learns serves Hashem and helps the Yid and the Torah, the Riber the Gerechter sein Tachlis Torah's Briyosei. He reaches the goal and the purpose of creation. As an ort from bracha, it becomes a place of blessing. Bracha mishtaleches, the bracha center. So based on this, we're saying now that the consequence of the bracha is because of the support that the place and the people support the tzaddik to be able to learn Torah, as die zwei Deis anal in Zohar, so that these two opinions in the Zohar, benegei yatsu birchas Lavan bischus Yaakov, as it relates to the blessing of Lavan in Yaakov's merit, seinen tolui in the zwei efanim, this will hinge on the two ways from bishvil ha-Torah bishvil Yisrael kedel kamon. The Rebbe is going to go now into a whole lengthy discussion what it means that the world was created for Torah and for Yidden. Based on that analysis, based on we were going to explain how much bishvil haTorah bishvil Yisrael, to what degree, to what extent, that will depend. What kind of a blessing do you get? Do you get the blessing of 100, which is Lavan's Shadish, or do you get a blessing of 1,000, which is Yaakov's Shadish? Because this whole blessing is based upon. So the Rebbe explains now that the blessing that comes to the place where a tzaddik goes, which is essentially what when the Yaakov came to Lavan, that's the place of a tzaddik. The Lavan was successful because of that, because being in a place where the tzaddik can do this service and you're supporting him, that makes you fulfill the place and the persons to fulfill their mission and goal of creation, which is to support the tzaddik, and this brings them the bracha. But to the extent of the bracha will depend, as the Rebbe will explain. The Rebbe explains, B'chlal, there is a discussion, a disagreement, whether the preparation of a mitzvah is part of the mitzvah, that they get the full force of the mitzvah or not. This will be when you do something for someone else. What degree does it become? Dalet. As is farana machloikis from Tanoim, there is a disagreement from Tanoim, mitzvah seinen doiche Shabbos, whether the preparation of mitzvah will also push away Shabbos. Like this, we know there are certain mitzvahs, like the mitzvah of Milah, when it's on the 8th day, that overrides the Shabbos. But what happens, the things to prepare for the bris Milah, do they also override the Shabbos? So Rabbi Lezer's view is, he's of the opinion, as machshire mitzvah seinen doiche Shabbos, that also the preparation for the mitzvah will override the Shabbos. So if you need to prepare the blade or whatever to do the bris, you need to do things in order to have the circumcision, you can override the Shabbos, just like the bris itself. Aber the halacha is, that's Rabbi Lezer's opinion. Rabbi Lezer de Mila is a perik in Shabbos. But the halacha is with the day, but the halacha remains as the opinion, as a zainen nit doiche Shabbos, that it doesn't override Shabbos. What's the logic behind whether the preparation of the mitzvah, the other things that are around that is needed for the mitzvahs, whether they too override the Shabbos or not? So as Bara Machloikis is, tzida hachshara v'hachona tza'apula, whether the preparation and getting it ready for something, for an act, does it have the same importance as the act itself? The acts that lead them, the act is the bris. The preparation for the bris is the other violations, but do they get the status? Are they important like the bris itself? Rabbi Lezer's view is, as Yubal Mikenni Ton de Piula, under hachona v'hachshara, since you cannot do the act without this preparation and getting this ready in this way, so that becomes part of the mitzvah. Vakum de hachona dem get the hachashivas from their peula atzma. So then this preparation and this getting ready gets preparation gets defined in importance as the act itself. Und der Fahr seinen Machshire Mitzvah durch Shabbos Punkt wie the Mitzvah Atzma. And that's why the preparation of a mitzvah, they override the Shabbos, just as the mitzvah itself, they override the Shabbos as well. Because that's important like the mitzvah, it's the preparation. Mashenkin under the Tanoim halten, as opposed to as the other Tanoim, their view is as notwithstanding that you need to come on, you need this preparation. But since at the end of the day, that's only a preparation, it's not the mitzvah itself. It's not in the same boundaries, it's not the same importance as the mitzvah itself. Und der Fahr seinen machshire mitzvah nit doiche Shabbos. And that's why the preparation of the mitzvah, when the mitzvah of Milah, for example, they will not override Shabbos. But the Rebbe says this is Lagabe Shabbos, the halacha. but yet there is other situations where there is a preparation that's considered to be actually mamish part of the mitzvah. It's more integral to the mitzvah than just the preparation in this case. Afal piyas benegayet to tchiyas Shabbos, even though, as with regards to pushing away, overriding the Shabbos, is the halacha nit Rabbi Lezer. The law is not like Rabbi Lezer. Umachshire mitzvah haben nit the chashivas from their mitzvah atzmai, and thus those that prepare for the mitzvah do not have the importance of the mitzvah itself. Seinen aber, there are, however, also according to halacha, not only in the inner way of things, but according to halacha itself, paran gewisse inyonim, there are some matters, was men zogt, which we say, ad der machshir l'chayre shel hamitzvah, seemingly that it only prepares the mitzvah. It's only a hechsher. It's not the mitzvah itself. Bakum techashivas shel hamitzvah, that gets the importance of the mitzvah. And the Rebbe brings an example. So, in practical Shabbos, the halacha is that the preparation of the mitzvah is not part of the mitzvah, doesn't override Shabbos, like the Chachamim, not like Rabbi Lezer. But yet there are other cases in which the mitzvah and its preparation will be considered like the mitzvah. L'dugma, Divra Haran Hayiduin, the known words of the Ran, as Chochan Isha is nit mitzvah mitzvahs piriya v'rivya, although a woman is not commanded in the mitzvah of being fruitful, multiplied, that's not a mitzvah, it's a mitzvah for the man. B'kol makom yesh lo mitzvah, she still has a mitzvah, he says, mipnei she misayes lebal l'kayim mitzvah, because she supports, she helps the husband to fulfill his mitzvah. The husband cannot fulfill his mitzvah of being fruitful without his wife. So it turns out that her participation, she's helping him to fulfill his mitzvah. Und in dem Gufe kann man lernen auf zwei Efanim. Here too, you can say, what level is the mitzvah? Do we mean that she just has a mitzvah, or she actually has the mitzvah period verivia? What Vigreta Mo Baruch has spoken at length. This was in the Kutesiches Chelek Yudalet Aleph. We can say what it means here. Yesh lo mitzvah stam. She has a mitzvah. We're not saying she has the mitzvah of Piri V'Rivya. She just has a mitzvah. Since she is helping for a mitzvah matter, hotzi a mitzvah, that's why she has a mitzvah stam, a general mitzvah. Does haste, aber nit in dem Geder hamiyuchat for mitzvahs Piri V'Rivya, but not in that special definitions, the boundaries of the mitzvah of Piri V'Rivya. We're not saying in this, number one, that the woman gets and is part of the mitzvah Piri V'Riva, just she has a mitzvah stam. But two, the balzis misayes labal, since she has supporting the husband. So mekayim a mitzvah Piri V'Riva, to fulfill the mitzvah Piri V'Riva, is ihr mitzvah begeder von der mitzvah rabo. She's defined her mitzvah as part of this great mitzvah, the mitzvah Piri V'Rivya from Piri V'Rivya, which is defined as a great mitzvah. So, why is there a difference? How come by Piri V'Rivya it becomes actually part of her mitzvah? And the answer is simple. Over there, time-wise, the preparation comes first, and then comes the mitzvah. Over here, the actual mitzvah of the husband of Piri V'Rivya cannot be without his wife. So therefore, it's a stronger connection there. There's a stronger support that needs to take place at the time of the mitzvah. Hey, the chiluk tzvishu machshiri mitzvah hanal, the difference between those who prepare for a mitzvah we talked about before by Milo, the chazayna nit doiche Shabbos, would not override Shabbos. Them fall in the case from Misayeh by Isha and the case of a woman supporting is moving bepashtas. That's simply understood. By machshire mitzvah hanal, when you prepare for a mitzvah, zainen der hechsher und the mitzvah zwei besondere pulis. The preparation and the mitzvah are two separate acts. Werden getan in besondere zmanim, and they are done in two separate types. The erste pula is taka hechrach. Yes, the first act, it prepares. You have to. Aber nur zu lieb der zweite Pula, but it's only because of the other act, an act that will follow. Umahai timer, and for that reason, because it's not simultaneously, it's not at the time, bakum de pulas ha'achona, that act of preparation, need the gedorim und chashivas from their mitzvah atzma, it does not receive that preparation, the definitions and the importance of the mitzvah itself. Mashen came by mitzvah's period review hanal, but as different is by the mitzvah period review that we're talking from the Ran, is there siyua from their isha in an oifun, then the support from the woman is in such a way as ervert achelik. That support becomes part from mitzvah sabal, that becomes part of the husband's mitzvah. Says nor was their chiyuv mitzvah is all about. The obligation for the mitzvah is the husband, but the woman's part is she's a part of the mitzvah of the husband. It's not something before, not something different. It's not a separate act. That's the same act of the husband, though the husband has the mitzvah. On the river bakum der sayua from their isha, the chashivas ha-mitzvah. That ha-mitzvah atzma. That's why the support that comes from the woman, they get the importance of the mitzvah. So the Rebbe brings out that while in preparation, there is sometimes a preparation which does not get the importance of the mitzvah, like by the machshir mitzvah, the halach is like the chachamim. But sometimes when it comes to piri v'rivya, because the act is done at the same time, then it gets the importance. The Rebbe is going to bring out the noizvav how this represents itself in the in the important when we say that the world is created for the Torah and Yid. What does that mean? To what extent? Well, similar to the distinction that we made between preparing and supporting tzias is not a toffel, whether it's just secondary or there does bakum tamein from the maker, or maybe this gets somewhat of the importance of the main. Is yeshmokim lachker b'negeh der b'riyah. There is place that we can sort of try to figure out as far as the creation goes. Was ist beschaffen geworden? The world was created b'shvil ha-Torah u'b'shvil Yisrael. The world was created for the Torah and for Yid. And Ken Zogun, so on one way you can say, the world is a preparation for the Yid and for Torah. So it's only as a hechsher. As the Bria is not hechsher v'tofel. The Bria is merely a getting ready in a secondary. Nit begeder chshiva sumayla from Torah v'Yisrael. It doesn't, it's not defined in the importance and the advantage of Torah and the Yid. Other, or Bibal, on the other hand, you can say, Bibal, Torah v'Yisrael. Muzun onkommen zu der Bria, since Torah and Yid need the creation, it is a support and a partner in fulfilling the mitzvahs, Torah mitzvahs. Bakum di Bria main chashivas from Torah v'Yisrael. Then the creation gets somewhat of an importance of the Torah and the Yid because of the support. What is it? And that, the Rebbe says, depends on how we look on creation. This depends in that men cooked over the Bria, on how, on the way we look on the creation. When you accept, or the men feel, or you feel, as the Bria is a metzias farzich, that the creation is an entity by itself. Not in Yona is, but its idea, the purpose is to sein an emtsoi v'hechsher, that it's an intermediary and getting ready b'shvilat Torah b'shvil Yisrael, for the Torah and for the Yidden. Dan hod de bria gufa nit kein shayches zu mailus ha-Torah v'Yisrael. Then the creation itself doesn't have a connection to the advantage of Torah and the Yidden. It's a preparation, it's a siyu, it's a hechsher mitzvah. Similar to those who prepare for a mitzvah before in Sivdalit, was seinen Nidoche Shabbos. Vibal, they don't override the Shabbos, the Machshire Mitzvah. Vibal, they seien nicht a Teil von der Peulas HaMitzvah, because they're not part of the act of the mitzvah. B'shas aber men zed di bria. But when you look at creation, as ihr ganze Mitzi is by state in them, that its entire existence consists in that, was is b'shvil ha-Torah b'shvil Yisrael. It's for Torah and for Yidden. Bis as the bria is kilu a prat von Torah v'Yisrael, to the extent that everything, its whole, why is there a world? Because of Torah Yidden. So the Torah is ki'ilu aprat from Torah v'Yisrael. It becomes a detail of Torah v'Yisrael. So there's also a world with which the Yidden can do the Torah work with a world. Ubeloshen Chazal, as the Chazal say in the language used by our sages of blessed memory, Ir mitzias is lisham sheni, the existence of the created, as he said that they were created lisham sheni. Kidei Ayid Zom Shamer Zainis Koine, so that Ayid should be able to serve his maker, serve Hashem. Misayeh Zainid Navedis Torah Mitzvah, to support Yidden in their service to Torah Mitzvahs. If that's the way you look at the world, that the world is there to help the Yid do Torah Mitzvahs, then will the Herzich in der Bria Gufa, then you can sense in the creation itself, Milas HaTorah Yisrael, the advantage of Torah and the Yidden in the Bria. If the Bria is just that preparation for them, then it's separate, it doesn't have the chashivas. But if the whole creation of the world is serving the person, then a Yid doing Torah mitzvahs, then that becomes part of the world. Al derech svara now, similar to the svara that we brought them before, as an isha hatachelek in mitzvahs perivirivya, that a woman has a part in the mitzvah perivirivya because she's part of that mitzvah. She helps in the act of the mitzvah at the time of the mitzvah, then that brings her not at preparing so that later I could do the mitzvah, but that's the support as the woman is part in the mitzvah perivya, so the world here is part of the Torah mitzvahs. That is part of being able to do Torah mitzvahs. You need a world. And so the Rebbe explains that these two ways, when is a preparation, only a preparation, doesn't get to the level of the mitzvah itself. In this case, that the world, if we look at the world, that it's just an entity to be able to serve the Eibishter, so it's supporting, then it doesn't live up, it doesn't get the level of the Torah and the Yid that it's created for, Bishvil. But if we look at it, that its entirety, the whole existence is to Shamish's Koine, and the Torah becomes a Messiah, the world becomes a Messiah, then it becomes part of it. Then it becomes, it gets the chshivus of Torah and Yisrael in the world itself. Zion. The Rebbe goes away now to bring out a whole other halacha machlokes between the Rambam and the Ravid about the shechita of a goy. Does it have any value at all? The shechitas akum. Does it have the ability that it makes it nevela? So, in order to make it nevela, you have to be animal that dies is not without the shechita. If it's a non-mitzias, as the Rebbe will explain, then it doesn't have the ability to make it into nevela to be metame b'masa. Let's look inside. Damit Zayin can man euch masber sein, die Plukta zwischen dem Rambam und Ravid. We can also explain with this, the disagreement between the Rambam and the Ravid in dem Din for Shchitas Akum, or the law of when Akum shechzit. So the Rambam Pascha, the Rambam rules, Shchitas Akum nevela. If the Akum shechzit, it's like killing the animal, so it becomes nevela. And nevela is different than treifa because by nevela it's metame b'masa that it would be metame if you carry it. So even though it was shchita, but because it was shechted by an akum, so that doesn't count as shchita, and therefore it's counted as nevela, a dead animal, and that would be metame b'masa because that's the different nevela that if you carry it, you become tummy. Medivrei sofrim, and that would be medivrei sofrim. So he says shari tumas avidazora the tumas tikrevosu medivreim that it's only midrabanon because all the tumas of avidazora and that you bring is midrabanon. That Ivid is the Rav Masikun Zog. That Ivid challenges this and he says, "Akom hem ki behemoths. Akom are like animals. Ve'ein mitamin, and they can't make anything tummy. Ve'ein mitamin, and they don't become tummy. Am hadome lechamoir. There's a people which is similar to a chamoir, to a donkey. Hein goyim kemar midli. It's like a drop of a bucket. Goyim is kemar midli. Veskulam yisaruach. Let the wind take them all. V'hachoshev oisam leklum. And if you consider them to be anything, osaf ruach b'chofna. If you have gathered air in your hands, you collected air. There's nothing there. Is mevayed the Ragachover. So the Ragachover explains the asogas haravid. What is the ravid? This seems like it's a dead animal. When is shchita mekalkel or macht far nevela? When can shchita ruin and make the animal a nevela? Davke oib der sheichet is a metzias teronis. He's an existence. He's a Torah says that he's a metzias. Al pi halacha. Mashenkin akum zayin and ruach. Akum are considered air, wind, heder, nothing. Und der Fahr ken zeir Schchita nit oifton apuula teronis. Their Schchita cannot accomplish a Torah act or b'meila dem din for nevela l'tame. They cannot make a din of nevela to be metame. Ushchitas akum nevela is mitzadem. So why is the shchitas akum nevela? Is mitzadem, but shchitas akum is nit ke shchita. It's just not a shchita. Ubemele is as a nevela ve'amesa me'elo, and that's why it gets the status of a nevela that died on its own, but it's not becomes nevela because of the shchitas akum. It's just a nevela because it is just died on its own. It's not the act of the goy. Mashenke of the akum. Mashenke the Rambam zogt as shchitas akum nevela metamachul medivrei sofrim. So it's more than nevela. It makes it nevela, and it's also metame medivrei sofrim. But halt as an akum is a metzias al pi halacha, that he is a metzias, an entity al pi halacha. So this the din is that the shchitas akum is nevela. The question is, did the akum make it into a nevela, or is it a nevela because it just died? And the Ragachover explains. By the way, in Chelek Yutches, the Rebbe also brings down. This is a little bit of a more detailed So in the Chelek Yudches, the Rebbe brings down in the Ha'ara here, the Rebbe discusses a little bit more. He also explained the Lashon of the Ram of the Ravid and says sometimes Agoyim are not a Mitzias, sometimes they are a Mitzias, but the Rebbe makes it over here short. But the bottom line, we see a difference that according to the Rambam, the Akum is a Mitzias. According to the Ravid, the Akum is not a non-entity. So the Rebbe brings out Alpia now. Mashenkin the Rambam sagt das Schitzsacken wir mit weil der halt mit Sis Alpia Locha. There is a Mitzias. But Alpia now can sagen as Boris Aplukta. Based on the above, we can explain the argument. The Dais arrived Hagam as the Mitzias from Bnei Noach is Bishvil Yisrael Chulu, even though their existence is for the Yidden, is a soberin an Eifun, but it still remains in such a way as they bleiben an Indian Toffel. They remain a secondary matter. Bakumen nit kein Chashivus Teironis. They don't get a Torah importance. B'meile rechenen ze sich nit ametzias al pi halacha. That's why they are not considered to be an entity according to halacha. Mashenkin, the Rambam halt, ados was ze seinen b'shvil Yisrael, because they're for Yidden, is in an oifen as they bakumen a shayches to their chashiva von Torah v'Yisrael. It's in such a way that they get a connection to the importance of Torah v'Yisrael. Bis as they werden begeder mitzias al pi halacha, to they become in the definition of an entity according to halacha. The Rebbe explains that these two possibilities, the Rebbe explains that whether it's a preparation which does not get the level of the mitzvah, or we say that it becomes part, like by Misayev, that the Ran spoke about, the Rebbe says the same thing is the entity of a non-Yid, of the Akum. This machlekes Rambam and the Rebbe. According to the Rambam, he says the non-Jew, he's the Akum, is an entity. That's why he makes it nevela. The Ravid says it's not nevela. He can't make it nevela. It's nevela because by definition, it's just not alive, so it becomes nevela. Ches apizeh yesh loymar. As the Rambam Gedol Lishitosi in the minyan from the Zayin Mitzvahs B'nei Noach. Based on this, we can say that the Rambam goes according to his view in general about the 7 Noachite mitzvahs. Where Zokdem Din, which he says the halacha, as in Klal from Chasidei Umas Ha'olam, that who is included being of the righteous of the nation of the world, seine nor die welche seinen Mekayim the Zayin Mitzvahs B'nei Noach Davke, that if they observed it 7 mitzvahs B'nei Noach, specifically because they were commanded in the Torah, they're doing it because the Eibishter told us these mitzvahs in the Torah, and he told us by Moshe Rabbeinu. If they do it because of the Torah, then they're Chasidei U'Mesolim. But if he does because he decides on his opinion, that's not considered to be the ger toishov, the convert who lives with you, and he's not considered from the righteous of the nations of the world. Seems surprising. What do we care? Why does he need to do the 7 mitzvahs of B'nai? Because the Eibishter told Moshe Rabbeinu, do Goyim have a connection to Torah? Why is that a condition that he can only be Chassidus, can only be a ger toishav, considered to a certain extent a level of a ger doing the 7 mitzvahs? Because the Torah said Moshe, Goyim don't have a shaychus l'chayre to Torah. The l'chayre is just Tomuah. This seems to be surprising. Since our mass teacher Moshe did not inherit the Torah mitzvahs only to the Yidden, Torah tzivalonu Moshe. The Lashon of the Rambam only was para shayches hot matan Torah zu Bnei Noach. So what kind of connections matan Torah have to Bnei Noach? Bis zu sagen, to the extent that we say As noch Matan Teuro, darf man sie mit keinem sein, seine mitzvahs darf get, that after Matan Teuro, they need to fulfill their mitzvahs, specifically, Mishpnei Shetzivu Behem HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'Teuro, because the Eibusha has commanded in the Torah. V'yeshlemer Abir Bazeh, so we can say, what's the explanation? Shengeret Kama Pa'omim, it's spoken already many times, as Zayin, mitzvahs b'nei Neach, the seven Neach mitzvahs, seine nicht an Inyan B'tachlis for sich zu libzei allein. It's not that they have an independent aspect and goal, so they have the mitzvah for themselves, zu libzei allein, for the b'nei Neach. No, das ist b'shvil Yisrael u'b'shvil HaTorah. It's for the Yidden and for Torah. So Libun Kima mitzvahs von Yid, Torah mitzvahs von Yid, because a Yid should be able to fulfill Torah mitzvahs. Kidei as Yidden sollen kennen mekayim sein Torah mitzvahs, so that the Yidden should be able to fulfill Torah mitzvahs. Darf die Welt sein in a Matze von Lashavas. Torah needs to be a settled world, and not you need a world with an organized world with the mitzvahs of the mitzvah b'nei, not the you're not a free for all that you can't live in this world. So it has to be royu muksher, it has to be fit and prepared for the Avodah von Yidden, for the service of a Yid. Und das wird aufgetan durch die sein mitzvahs b'nei. This is accomplished through the seven mitzvahs b'nei. Welche stellen ein a seder v'yishuv ha'olam. They set up an order of settling the world. Und der Riber halt der Rambam, that's why the Rambam's view is, as they darf mekayim sein design mitzvahs, mipnei shetzivu behem HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'Torah, is because Hashem commanded to do them in the Torah. That's why we have to do it. Shikeshem vidos is. They have to do it because of the Torah. Kishem vidos is b'negei to zeiretz mitzias, just like their existence itself. The Rebbe discussed. The Rambam says that their existence is really becomes part of the Yidden b'shvil, because they were created for the Yidden. So just as it is b'negei zeiretz mitzias, aval zeir briyas b'shvil Yisrael, because they were created for the Yid, the riber zayin zeir mitzias, that makes them into an entity. Api halacha. That's the same applies to their mitzvahs. Because they are doing seven mitzvahs, it's because of the Torah. So you have to feel and sense in them that their purpose, their goal of the mitzvahs is for the Torah. So it has to, so therefore, Shvila Torah, b'meila zan ze shaykh to Matan Torah. Therefore, they're connected to Matan Torah, and they have to do it because of Matan Torah, because it's all their mitzvahs are done for Matan Torah, for the Yid, so that he can do his mitzvahs. That's the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Neach, for a Yid to be able to be settled, and that makes them up, that they get a connection to Torah. And like them biur b'divrei Rambam, according to this explanation, the words of the Rambam, will also understand the difference between the Girsois Bozainen Do in Rambam Balochazu, the various different version that we find in the Rambam. The Girsahan, the Futsa in Rambam, is the most spread out version in the Rambam is Aval Im Osam. If he does, the guy, the Nachri, the Zion Mitzvah, the seven commandment, only because of the decision that his mind, he's not considered to be a ger toishav, he's not of the righteous of the Umas Ha'olam. And then we add, v'loi meichachamehem. Very difficult, this last word. There is not from those smart ones. Why? Why would there not be? But in Kama Rishonim, in many of the earlier Rishonim, and also in the handwriting of the Teimonim, in their version of the Rambam, is the Gizsa, he is not from the righteous of the nations of the world, but only he's wise because he chose the right thing. L'chayre is davke de girsa han nefutza al tamur. It would seem that specifically that version that is common, that's the surprising one. Pavozom and Zogun, why should we say, as there was his Mekayim design mitzvahs, the one who fulfills the seven mitzvahs, because he decides his mind that this is decision, that that's what he should do, is nit mechachamim. Why shouldn't he be from the chachamim? Adrabah. The contrary is doch mitzvah sichlis. The seven laws are logical mitzvahs. So why would he not be from their wise ones? So now, but based on what we said before, we can explain as the zwei Girsois Rambam, these two verses of the Rambam, and zwei Fanim. These are two ways we can learn the Shittas Rambam, how we can learn the Rambam's view in their Shaykhs, was Umas Ha'olam Bakumen zu Torah, the connection that the nations of the world get to Torah. Loit der Girsa Elam Chachameim, according to the Girsa, that it's, but you are there, the Chachameim, is Afal Pias Men Mon von Bnei Noach. Even though we're demanding of the Bnei Noach to Mekayim Zayin, the Zayin mitzvahs, they should do the seven mitzvahs, Bnei Shetzivo Bahen HaKadosh Baruch Hu BaTorah, is because that what Hashem told us in the Torah. And we said, because Valder Inyan from Torah, that aspect of Torah, is the Matorah for Zeir Bria, that aspect of Torah, that this is the purpose of their creation, can nirgash werden euch bei sie, can be so felt by them. So they have the expectation of the Bnei Noach that they should do it because it says in the Torah. Because that aspect of Torah for them, they can reach that. That's something that is connected to them. Ava became still. Bebalda Zeyer Bishvila Torah. Because of Torah, their shaykhis to Torah is nor as hechshev v'tofel. Their connection to Torah is only as a preparation, secondary. Ken der inyan ha-Torah b'zeh hevder nor mitzad chasidus. So the idea of Torah can only be sensed by them because the righteousness. But often, as das nimmt nicht durch v'niskabel, that it does not penetrate, it does not, it's not accepted in their mitzir, their chokhmah v'seichel. Cannot penetrate, cannot do it, and to get to such an extent that they should actually appreciate it and get that idea that they're there as a hechshev v'tofel for the Yidden, for the mitzvahs, for the Yidden. Und der Far kämen nicht monnen, we can't expect, as er Chochma muss mekabel sein an Inyan von Tzivu Beher HaKadosh Baruch Hu BeTorah. We can't accept that Mechachamehem, that the Chochma, according to wisdom, should accept an idea that the Torah has commanded, Hashem has commanded the Torah. Und der Far, and therefore, Afal Pi as er is nit mekabel, therefore, even though is as nit mekabel, he doesn't accept it. It doesn't penetrate. Is mechachameim mitzad zeir chochma seinen design mitzvahs, because of their wisdom, the seven mitzvahs are nechradas. From the perspective of the umas ha'olam, from their chochma, it's not acceptable, and they don't accept it that the Eibishter is commanded the Torah, so he remains a chochem. But not Chassidei Umas Ha'olam, for over there you have to accept it also in their whole being. But loy der girsa nefutza, azim osam b'pnei echradas, that if he does it because of what he decided, is a loy mechachameyem, then he's not a chochem. Bald as the ganze Metzias from Bnei Noach is b'shvila Torah, since their entire existence is for Torah. Darf der Inyan ha-Torah euch durchdringen, the Chochmah Shalom. then the idea of Torah needs to penetrate also their wisdom. And if not, there is no entity of Chochmah there. Weil es felt in their chayis dem shvilat Torah, because in their life force, in their seichel, in their Chochmah, they don't sense the b'shvilat Torah. So therefore, he's not a Chocham. So depending on what the expectation is from the Ummah Ha'olam, do we expect Chochmah? If we expect them to do the Chochmah too, that in their understanding they should accept as their Metzias is b'shvilat Torah. So then if they don't accept it in their Chochmah, then they're not Chacham. But if it's not expected for them to understand it in the Chochmah, it's sufficient that they accept the Shem Mitzvah, but they can't come to the Chochmah. So then he is a Chacham. He's still a Chacham. Yud. Das ist euch der Bier in the 2 days in Zayar. When they gave the bracha b'mikna lovam b'schus shel Yaakov. This is also the explanation in the 2 opinions in the Zohar as it refers to the blessing of the cattle of Lavan in the merit of Yaakov. The chilik tzvish mispar meyo mispar elef is. What's the difference between 100 and the number of 100 and 1,000? Meyo, the number 100, eser pamim eser, that's 10 times 10, is the shlemus ha-bracha. That's the ultimate, complete, wholesome bracha. V'haribu shemitzad ha-teva. That's the multitude, the many. Nature is 100, that means all. By common yonim, you find by many areas in nature the level of 100 is wholesomeness, is completion. Azer shlemus is b'misper that the completeness, wholesomeness is the number 100. Well, the dogma, like we say, ben meya kilu meis v'avru botl min oilam. When you turn 100, it's as if you died and you've passed and you are no longer in the world, which means the world is up to 100. The shleimus for Sheinei Pirka, another case we find, what is the wholesomeness of a person who learns his chapter, he reviews, and is lefitivur doing it naturally, and what your custom is made upon. That's why 101 is beyond, but 100 piyamim, that's 100 is the shleimus. Void in other cases. Mashenkin elef, as opposed to 1,000, Weist of Hashlemus was his hecher from Teva. That shows on a wholesomeness which is higher than nature. Ukiyadu has known that the word Aleph is Pella. Aleph is Oisius Pella. It's wonder, this surprise, this is beyond. Bizas minutz bekama mekaimis. To the many places we use the Misper Elef Bahashola. We use it as a borrowed term, exaggeration. Oh, 1,000. So that's used, that expresses this points to a tremendous amount of a lot. It's explained in many places as that the nations of the world on their own, they only have a connection to the natural conduct of things. Mashenkin Eden, mitzad atzmam, but Yidden in themselves, seinen Hecher von Welt are higher than world. Und they führt der Eberste mit an they are led by Hashem in a miraculous way. Und in dem besteht der Chiluk zwischen den 2 Deis in Zayar. In this consists the difference in the 2 opinions of the Zayar. Leute der erste Day, according to the first day, haben Ha'olam kescheiches nicht zu der Meile von Yidden. They don't have a connection to the greatness of Yidden. Und der Fahr is euch dämmelt, wenn sie führen durch their Tafkid. So even when they accomplish their mission, von the Sham Sheni, they serve a Yid. Doesn't make them, and they help them in their service. They get only the extended of the bracha. This is mitzad teva meya, only with nature, which is 100. As opposed to the opinion of Rabbi Abba, is the ganze Metzias von Umas Ha'olam, the entire entity of the nations is for the Torah and the Yidden. They have a connection to the greatness of the Yidden. Und darüber, wenn sie führen durch their Tafkid zum Messiah sein Iden, when they accomplish their mission to help a Yid, bekommen sie am Ein von der Cheshivas von Yidden, they get somewhat of the importance of the Yidden, was ihr Bracha dricks chodos ois b'mispar elef. When it's in Bracha, you get in 1,000. Hecher from Adidas Vagbolas Hateva, which is higher than the limitations and the measure of nature. So basically, depending upon these two approaches, that if, Lavan helped Yaakov do his avodah, but helping him doing the avodah doesn't give him the milah of love of Yaakov, which is connected to Elov brachas. He can only get the 100 brachas, as opposed to the opinion of Rabbi Abba, that since the whole existence on the higher level is for them, they're a part of it as well. And even a goy can get from the level of Elov from higher than nature. Yud Aleph. In them yachas, can also learn a lesson in the relationship from Eden to Umas Ha'olam Bizmanenu Anu, to the relationship to the nations of the world in our time. The Eibishter hat euch gestellt dem Seder in Welt azoi. Hashem set up the world in such a way as Bisman Hagolus is der Matzah von Eden, that during the time of exile, the situation of the Eden upending were dependent in a gewisser Mos to a certain extent in the Matzah von Umas Ha'olam, on the condition of the nations of the world. Und in Zeir Yachas zu Eden, and how their relationship, how their attitude for the Eden. Quoting from the Mishnah, when it's peace to them will be peace to you. A Yid has to, however, constantly remember. As durch them was der Nitid helped him arois, that through the fact that the non-Jew helps him out, und is mishamish the Midden and serves the Yidden, is the Yid mit goyrem. The Yid causes as the Nitid, that he, the non-Jew, soll in nis galevern, sein chayis, that it should be revealed to him his vitality, that b'shvil Yisrael, that he is there for a Yid. Und soll nisbarach werden, he should be blessed. Es torn nit sein chas v'shol marom gefallen for him. He should not be, God forbid, falling down before him, feeling inferior for the non-Jew. Neusef alzem was der eine Yehudi is kigarzen b'yad ha'chitzabai. Besides the fact, in addition to the fact that the non-Jew is only like a metal, and the one who carves with it, he doesn't have any choices, by which Hashem bekommt durch der Hilfe zu sein Chayis Bracha. So the non-Jew receives through this his help and support, that he gets his life and his bracha. With the Mittler Rebbe, Bal Hagula Yud Kislev, as Mittler Rebbe, once redemption is Yud Kislev, is Mevayer. As Mizen, Bechol Der, Bechol Zman, we see every generation, every time. She'uma she'Yisrael tachtam begolus, that the nation in which the Yidden are underneath them in exile, misnasas al kol hagoyim, is raised over all the nation. As we saw it in this last generation. As kolzman der minyan ubinyan from Bnei Yisrael sich gefunden nor in jener Medina, for as long as the majority, the numbers, and the basic structure of all Yidden were in the other country under the former Soviet Union, is he given bisnasus, then it was on a high level, or it spread fear, I'll call it on the whole world. And in them zman ha'achren, but in the later time, when the reiv minyan of binyan from Am Yisrael, when the majority, the number and the structure of the Jewish people, Geita Riber and Artzis Abris, is transferring over to the United States, is he geworden the starkste Medina in der Welt. Then America became the strongest country in the world. Which has the power to place its dread and fear of in the entire world. Medina even in that country. And more than this, not only does he know this, nor does der Herr der Masle from the Meinu Yehudi. Also the Mazel, the non-Jews upper subconscious. The Mazel, Bizas, the Mazel zogt, Vayerechein Hashem beglolich. His Mazel says, Hashem has blessed me because of you. Ubemela is Vacharoto Gedoylo Noflo Kol Ame Oretz. A great fear fell on all the nations of the world, as in the pasuk in Daniel. Und ob der eine Yehudi shaykh zu Nichish, and if he can guess, he knows how to do that. So he also says and publicizes. I have figured out, I've guessed, and Hashem has blessed me because of you. Bed befedish, and he asks specifically, "Nokvas schorcha alai v'ateni." Tell me what to pay you, and I will give you. Maybe at least mazlayu, because over there they didn't even see Daniel over there as the, and still they were fearful because the mazel upper sees that. And therefore, the nations of the world support the Yidden mit simcha v'chayis, with joy, with energy. As doing something which brings along blessing. Biz as v'hoyu malachim eminayich. The kings will be those who raise you. So the same Nikasayim and their women, noble, the women of the nobles, they will nurse you noch bisman hagolus in time of golus. Unidin haben tzarcheyem barchova. You didn't have their needs in a wide way. Great zechzutzum zman, and they prepared themselves for the time. And epich al amim sofa berura. I will turn to all the nations a clear language. Likrei kulam b'shem havaya. Everybody will call in the name of Hashem. La'ovdei shechem echad, to work, serving with one shoulder. B'geula amitis v'hashlema, in the true and complete redemption. Al yidei Mashiach tzidkenu, through Mashiach tzidkenu. This is Mesichas Shabbos Parshas Vayetzei, Tavshin Mem Beis, and Beis the Rosh Chodesh Mar Cheshvan, Tavshin Mem.